Hare Krishna, everyone. Hope you can see my screen and you can hear me properly.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So, before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that the chat option is not working, I believe, for most of you, or every one of you, maybe. At least I heard some feedback that it's not working. So Microsoft Teams did go through an upgrade. I think the app was upgraded, and I have not changed any settings. So I don't know why it has changed. I can't even go into my meeting options. It's, it giving me, I was finally able to find how to get in there, but it's saying meeting is cancelled, which is also kind of a weird message. So I'll just work with our admin to have that resolved. So for today's class, if at any point in time, if you need to interrupt me, please don't hesitate. Just interrupt me, and then you can ask or comment or anything. But we'll work to have it resolved. So I apologize for that. You just have to bear with this for today's session, and we'll have it resolved. So having said that, we can get started. Did anyone have any questions, comments from previous session before we begin? Okay. So I believe we completed the 31st verse of the first chapter. So now we are going into the verses starting from 32 up until the end. Arjuna is actually going to present his arguments, why he doesn't want to fight. And there are three main arguments that he presents, and we are going to cover that. And Krishna actually addresses those arguments in the second chapter itself, actually covers all of them in just one chapter. But then things are not clear to Arjuna, and then he keeps on asking further questions to get more clarification. And that's how the entire Bhagavad Gita expands. And it's completed actually, by the time through the end of the 6th chapter. the most of the contents are covered. But then the middle section, which is 7th through 12th, it's Bhakti Yoga, and Krishna actually elaborates further more on Bhakti Yoga. And then from chapter 13 through the 18th, the last 6 chapters is basically further elaboration on Jnana Yoga, which is already covered in the first 6 chapters. And especially the 18th chapter, he again brings the entire conversation to conclusion, because there are so many things discussed, and he again specifically addresses these 3 questions that we're going to talk about. And the reason why this is important is what I have personally experienced from reading Bhagavad Gita. For so many years, I've been studying at least 20 plus years off and on. And what I realize is that though Bhagavad Gita has all the answers to all possible philosophical questions that we could come across, it only reveals based on what we are seeking, right? So if you don't have a certain question in our mind, then though the answer is there, it won't be revealed to us. But as we grow, as we become mature, as we have so many different kind of life experiences, and we come back to the same verse or studying again, we bring that perspective to it, and now we are seeking something that we are not seeking when we earlier, and then Bhagavad Gita reveals those realization. So if Krishna is primarily trying to address the 3 arguments that Arjuna is going to present today, and to the extent that we are able to understand what Arjuna is saying, to that extent we can understand Krishna's responses. So having said that, let's get started. Verses 32 through 35. Kim no rajena govinda kim bhogerjivitena va yesham arthe kangshitam no rajyam bhoga sukhani cha ta ime avasistha yuddhe pranam styaktva dhanani cha acharya pitara putras tatheva cha pitamaha matulaha swashura pautra shalya sambandhinas tatha etan hantum ichchami घ्नतो अपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्य राज्यस्य हेतो किं नु मही कृते निहत्य धार्तराष्ट्रन्न का प्रीति स्यात् जनार्दन. Translation. O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the 3 worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Purport. Here Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Govinda. So let me go to 30 seconds. So Govinda has a specific relevance here in this context. So what is the relevance? So Govinda means someone who pleases our senses. Go means senses, and so Govinda here is referred to as someone who pleases. So Krishna is specifically object of pleasures for cows and senses. So go has 2 meanings, right? One is go is cows. We say go puja, right? Go Vardhan. Go Vardhan means one who nourishes the cows. That is go Vardhan. Vardhan means nourishes. Then we come across this word Goswami. So our acharyas are referred to as Goswami. Goswami means, Swami means the Lord. One who is the master of one's senses is a Goswami, right? In the conditioned life, everyone is a servant of the senses, Godasa. If the senses say that they have their urges, they have their demands, and we are all busy trying to fulfill the demands of the senses. So we are all godasa. But one who has control over the urges of the senses is called a Goswami. And Govinda, similarly here, Govinda means one who is giving the pleasure to the cows and the senses. So why is Arjuna referring Krishna as Govinda over here? He's referring to him as Govinda because what is the argument that he made? He said that even if I win the war, what good would it be if I cannot enjoy? Because how do we typically enjoy? Suppose, if I get a success, if I win a big business contract, or I might buy a nice home, then I want to invite my friends and family members, and we basically enjoy in the company of our near and dear ones. So Arjuna is saying, even if I win the war, everyone whom am I related to, my grandfather, my teachers, my relatives, they would all be dead. So with whom I'm going to enjoy? And so Krishna is saying that Arjuna is saying to Krishna, you are known as Govinda, right? And you are the one who gives pleasure to the senses. So he's saying you should try to understand. He's saying by using this word, Arjuna indicates to Krishna that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. Right? So he's saying what is going to satisfy me if I can enjoy. But that doesn't seem likely. Right? So here Prabhupada mentioned that Govinda is not actually meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, then our senses are automatically satisfied. Just like we discussed in the introduction, we talked about that if we water the roots of the plant, the entire plant is nourished, and all the parts, including fruits, flowers, leaves, stems, they all get nourishment. Why? When the root is satisfied. So Krishna tushtam jagat tushtam. If Krishna is satisfied, everyone is satisfied. But here Arjuna, he is apparently covered by ignorance, so that Bhagavad Gita can be spoken. So he's saying, Krishna, you should understand what is pleasing to me. So he's referring to him as Govinda. Srila Prabhupada then mentioned that everyone wants to satisfy one's own senses, and he wants to be God. He wants God to be the order supplier of satisfaction. So we see that in a lot of religious traditions, the idea is that the God is the bread supplier. They thank God for providing us our daily bread. So such an attitude, at least there is some level of theism, but it's not a high level of theism. When we look upon God as some sort of order supplier, that he must satisfy all my needs and demands, right? So that is not devotion. That's more like that's not even like a business deal. Sometimes people, they offer something to God, and in return they expect something. So that is more like business kind of dealing. But sometimes people just complain. If God exists, he must fulfill all my needs and demands. So that is not the proper attitude. Lord will satisfy the senses of living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may become covetous. They covet. That means, sometimes, like the parent wants to fulfill the needs of the child, and the parent knows how much the child needs. But a good parent would never satisfy all the whims and demands of the child. Right? They know what is needed. To that need, the needs would be fulfilled. But if every single whims and demands are fulfilled, then the child, it's not a proper upbringing. He would always want his way. It's not a good life learning. So similarly, the Lord, he knows what is good for us, what is not good for us. But when one actually tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all the desires are automatically fulfilled. So here, Arjuna's argument is based on his deep affection for his family members. Right? Why? Because he is naturally compassionate towards them. And so he is not prepared to fight. So Arjuna is fearing that all his relatives and friends will be killed. We already talked about that. And he would be unable to enjoy this opulence with them. So Prabhupada mentions that this is a typical calculation of material life. I gave the example, if I have, we all want to enjoy and share our success with others, right? But in transcendental life, the spiritual life, this is different. The attitude is very different. The devotee actually wants to satisfy the desires of the Lord. And Lord is so kind enough that he would, so in order to satisfy the desires of the Lord, one might accept all the opulence for the service. But if those resources are not available, then one nevertheless serves the Lord, right? So for the service of the Lord, we want to use the best things that are available. So accept all kind of opulence for the service of the Lord. And if the Lord is not willing, he should not accept a farthing. So what are some good examples? There is an example where we can think of an example when Krishna visits Vidura. And Vidura's wife is so pleased that Krishna has come home, and she, in her excitement to serve him, she brings some bananas. And then she's so excited, she peels the bananas, but instead of giving the banana, she gives Krishna the skin. And Krishna, he's a bhavgrahi. He sees the love and he accepts what he has provided. So the essence is that devotee wants to satisfy the Lord. For satisfying the Lord, one can use all kind of opulences. So there are devotees who have been great kings, Janak Maharaj, then King Indradyumna during time of Lord Jagannath. They have all the resources, they have all the wealth and opulence, right? Ambarish Maharaj is a great example. We find his story in Bhagavatam. Ambarish Maharaj, despite of having all the opulences, he was not proud of those opulences. Instead, he would use all those opulences for the service of the Lord. He would fast every single Ekadasi, Nirjala Ekadasi. He would not even take a drop of water, like that. But there are instances where if something is not pleasing to the Lord, then the devotee would actually not even accept a farthing. So there's an example of, I believe it was Sanatan Goswami in the pastime of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sanatan Goswami was a great minister in the Muslim government. This was 500 years ago, during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he gave up his high position in the Muslim government. And he became a sannyasi, and then he surrendered to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he gave up everything, but he had a nice shawl that he was wearing, which he might have, though he gave up everything, he still had that. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw that you renounced everything, then why be attached to this once insignificant shawl? So Mahaprabhu did not say directly to him, but he showed his disapproval, and Sanatan Goswami understood that, and so he went to a beggar and told the beggar, you take this nice shawl and give me your worn out and old shawl. And the beggar was saying, are you this some kind of joke or what? But I'm serious. So he's an example of a devotee where he would not accept any opulence if it is not pleasing to the Lord. So Arjuna did not want to kill his relatives. If there were any need to kill, he desired that Krishna should kill them personally. So he's saying that, okay, if you think that these people really need to die, then you are the Almighty Lord, you can kill them, but I don't want to be involved in this, right? So at this point, Arjuna does not know that Krishna had already killed them. What it means is that their death is certain. So later in the halfway through Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna shows his universal form, in that he's showing his universal form that has innumerable mouths and arms and legs, and the entire universe is comprised within his body. So when he shows that universal form, Arjuna mentions that actually in your thousands of mouths, I already see all these warriors entering and dying all these warriors who have assembled on the battlefield. So their death is certain. Later, Krishna tells Arjuna that in Bhagavad Gita that you are the immediate cause. You are the immediate instrument. But even if you fight or not fight, their death is certain. So that's the point Srila Prabhupada is mentioning over here. Now, as a natural devotee, Arjuna did not want to retaliate against the miscreants. So he had affection. So he knew that there was so much wrong done to the Pandavas by the Kauravas all throughout their life, since they were, young, very young. Like Bhima was there was an attempt to poison him. Then they were sent to Vex palace to stay for a vacation, and they tried to burn them. There was the gambling match. So there were so many different kind of wrongs that were done. But here, Arjuna, as a kind-hearted person, he still doesn't want to fight. So devotee of the Lord does not want to retaliate against the wrongdoer. But the Lord does not tolerate any mischief done to the devotee by the miscreants. So this is another example of this is Ambarish Maharaj. I said, Ambarish Maharaj, when he was doing fasting, Ekadasi fasting, on the Dwadasi day, he was about to break the fast. So this was in Mathura, in Brajamandal. And Durvasa Muni appeared. And Durvasa Muni, as we know, he gets very angry very easily. So he told Ambarish Maharaj that, let me go and take a bath and I'll come. And then you can break the fast. We'll honor prasadam together. Now Durvasa Muni goes and he becomes, he comes late. And the fast needs to be broken within certain time. And so now Ambarish Maharaj, he consults all his ministers and they suggest that, well, if you take Achman, because he is doing Nirjala fasting, if you take Achman, it is considered as breaking fast as well as it is considered as not breaking fast because it's just one drop of water. And so in order to respect Ekadasi Vrata, Ambarish Maharaj breaks the fast by taking Achman. And then Durvasa Muni, by his mystic power, he understands what happened. So when he comes, he's very angry. And then he's so angry, he's cursing. He's about to curse Ambarish Maharaj. Now the Sudarshan Chakra is personally present to protect Ambarish Maharaj because Ambarish Maharaj was a great devotee of Krishna. And so Krishna had, ordered his Sudarshan Chakra, his paraphernalia, to protect his devotees. And now that Sudarshan Chakra starts chasing Durvasa Muni, Durvasa Muni had to go to Brahma, to Shiva, to Vishnu. No one could help him. Vishnu said that you offended my devotee, you have to go and ask forgiveness to the devotee. And so Durvasa Muni comes back. He asks for forgiveness to Ambarish Maharaj. And Ambarish Maharaj says, I did not even take offense. I did not even took offense. I am rather feeling that, you had to get into this unnecessary trouble. So the pure devotees, they are not affected by the dualities of life. They are neither affected by praise or infamy or, curse. They are always fixed. Like same thing, Parikshit Maharaj, he was cursed by the son of a Brahmana that he will die in the 7 days. He was powerful enough to counteract the curse, but he accepted the curse. He said, okay, I know I'm going to die in 7 days. Let me listen Srimad Bhagavatam and perfect my life. So that is the quality of a devotee. So because the devotees are fully surrendered, right, and they do not want to retaliate, the Lord is especially merciful to them. He says, okay, you don't want to retaliate, but I am concerned about you. So I'll make sure that nothing wrong happens to that. Just like we saw in the case of Ambarish Maharaj. The Sudarshan Chakra, so Ambarish Maharaj did not took any offense. Sudarshan Chakra, on the order of Krishna, he protected his devotee because Krishna does not tolerate any offense to his devotee. So that's the example over here. So Krishna is personally present next to Arjuna. And he says, okay, you are not taking an offense, but I am taking an offense. I am so much disturbed that Kauravas, they basically tormented you all your life. So this is there's no way they can escape from this. So that is the gist of this verses. Anyone has any questions? Okay, verse number 36. Papam evashrayedasman hatvaitan atatayinah tasman narha vayam hantum dhartrashtraन् sabandhavan swajanam hi katham hatva sukhina shama madhava. Translation: sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune? And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? So this is the second argument. What was the first argument? First argument was based on material condition. So you'll see the progression. You'll see the progression from first, second to third. The first argument is based on his own personal enjoyment, immediate personal enjoyment, not afterlife enjoyment. He said immediate enjoyment is, if I win the kingdom, I won't be able to enjoy because those who are near and dear to me, they will all be dead. So that is his first argument, which is immediate sense gratification after the end of war. Now the second argument is saying, okay, that is one thing, but that's not the end of the thing and end of the story. There's another reason why I don't want to fight, which is, okay, after my life is over, one, I will have to suffer the sin of killing my guru. Dronacharya is fighting on the other side. I will have to suffer the sin of killing Bhishma Pitama, who is such an exalted personality. He's also my great grandfather, right? Okay, even if you forget about Kauravas, there are other well-wishers to whom I am indebted, my guru. So Guru Hatya, Brahman Hatya, Gau Hatya, right? These are very serious sins. So that's what Arjuna is saying. This is his second argument. He's saying sin will overcome if I slay all these relatives and my well-wishers and my teachers. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that according to Dharma Shastras, the Vedic injunction is that 6 kind of aggressors should be immediately killed. This is Nyaya. What are the 6 kind of aggressors? One who poisons, a poison giver, right? One who sets fire to the house. One who attacks with deadly weapons. One who plunders riches. One who occupies another's land. And one who kidnaps a wife, somebody's wife. Now, if you look at the story of Mahabharata, the Pandavas, they were affected by all these 6 kind of aggressions, not just one. What is Dharma Shastra saying? Dharma Shastra is saying, even if one of this aggression happens, that person should be immediately killed. If someone tries to poison someone, he should be immediately killed. Not all 6, even one. If someone tries to arson someone's home or house, he should be immediately killed, right? So in case of Pandavas, all 6 happened. First of all, Bhima was poisoned when he was very young. He was poisoned. They called, Duryodhan called the Pandavas for a picnic. They had nice food, and in Krsna, Duryodhan especially was envious of Bhima. He poisoned his food, and they, after he became unconscious, they tied him in ropes and then drowned him. I believe it was Yamuna. And Bhima actually went to Nagaloka. And the Nagas, they were relatives of, they were related to Kunti, and so with affection they cured him, and also they gave him benediction that he would be supremely powerful. Then one who sets fire to the house. The Pandavas, they were invited to Varnavat, and they made this palace which was of wax, specifically in a way that it can easily catch fire, and they made it in such a way that no one can escape. But Vidura gave them a timely information, and they were able to dig a tunnel and they were able to escape. So that happened. Then there were instances where there was an attack. There were instances of clashes with deadly weapons. I'm trying to think what that particular instance was. Okay, I'll come back to that. And then plundering riches. So the gambling match. On 2 occasions, we saw that Duryodhan, with the help of Shakuni, he won that gambling match, and he basically plundered all the riches. And that was by cheating, right? Sakuni had this mystic power that whatever number he wants, he can roll it on the die. Then the next one was one who occupies another land. Now the Pandavas, they were the rightful the rulers of the land. They were ready to give that also. They only wanted 5 villages. That also Duryodhan did not give. He said, just for Kshatriya Dharma, we should have something to rule. Give us 5 villages. Duryodhan did not agree. And what happened? Finally, by cheating, they actually took away their wives, Draupadi, right? And they tried to disrobe her. So you see, all 6 aggressions were happened. Now, it's not just one. So this is a very grievous, very grave situation. And so there's no reason that they should be pardoned, right? So such aggressors are at once to be killed, and no sin is incurred by killing such aggressors. But such killing of aggressor is quite befitting an ordinary man. But Arjuna was not an ordinary man. He was saintly in character. Therefore, he wanted to deal with them with saintliness. This kind of saintliness, however, is not meant for Kshatriya. So in general, saintliness is appreciated, especially for Brahmanas. Brahmanas should be very tolerant. And, they are very, they are very forgiving. They don't take any personal offense. They don't give up their good nature or good character despite of the other person not being good. But this is not recommended for a Kshatriya, because Kshatriya is an administrator of the state. He is responsible for providing justice, right? Just like if the judiciary, right, or the law enforcement, they become so liberal that they don't want to, let me just give, no matter how grievous crime somebody has committed or grave crime somebody has committed, you just pardon them, right? So that's not justice. An administrator, law enforcement, judiciary, the Kshatriyas, right, they have to deliver justice. They cannot assume the nature of saintliness artificially. So that again goes into the conversation of Varnas. We will talk about that. Yeah, so an administrator should not be cowardly. And then Srila Prabhupada gives the example over here of Lord Rama. And Ravana also did the aggression of kidnapping Rama's wife. Right? Sita Devi was kidnapped. And what did Lord Rama do? He taught him a lesson, right? So the aggressor did not let him go. He chastised him, and ultimately Ravana was killed. But in Arjuna's case, this is a unique situation. In case of Rama was not related to Ravana. So Rama was not related to Ravana. Somebody can, make that argument. But in case of Arjuna, he's saying that his relatives were there on the other side. His grandfather, his teacher, friends, sons, grandsons. And because of them, Arjuna thought that he should not take severe steps, which are necessary against ordinary aggressors. These are not ordinary aggressors. So he's saying that, okay, in order to deliver justice, I have to kill my relatives, and then I will be affected by the sin of Guru Hatya, Pitru Hatya, right? All this. So Brahmana Hatya, there is Kripacharya was also fighting on the other side. Son of a Brahmana, Aswathama. So besides that, saintly persons are advised to forgive. So he's making all these arguments, right? He says these injunctions of saintliness, he's saying they're more important than any kind of political emergency. So this is Arjuna's opinion, right? So he is sounding very intelligent. He's trying to make all these arguments. So Arjuna then considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen for political reason, it would be better to forgive them on the grounds of religion and saintly behavior. He says, after all, kingdoms and the pleasure that you derive from them, they are not permanent. So you see, now you see the progression. The first argument was, if I win, I want to be able to enjoy, right? So that was his first argument. Second, saying, okay, there is a higher reason. What's the higher reason? That enjoyment is going to be temporary, right? So let's leave that argument aside. But beyond that, what's going to happen, right? Anyway, I'm not going to be able to enjoy. But what is the higher principle? The higher principle is proper behavior, the saintly behavior of not killing one's own relatives. Because if I don't behave in this saintly fashion, right, then what will happen is that I will be affected by sin. So why should he risk his life? In the sense that to take that risk of accruing sin. And when you accrue sin, then the salvation is not possible. So he's saying, what I'm risking, my life and the possibility of eternal salvation by killing my own kinsman. So then he addresses Krishna as Madhava. So Madhava specifically refers to the husband of the goddess of fortune. So then he's calling Krishna Madhava over here. He's trying to point out that Krishna, you are the husband of goddess of fortune. So the fortune is always with you. Why you are asking me to do an activity that will bring about misfortune? So he is kind of trying to hint this to Krishna by calling him as Madhava. He says, the good fortune is with you all the way, but you are asking me to get engaged in something that's going to bring about misfortune. So this is his second argument, that he would be affected by sin by killing his own relatives. Any questions on verse 36? Okay. Verse number 37. यदि अपि एतेन पश्यन्ति लोभोपहता चेतसः कुलक्षय कृतं दोषं मित्रद्रोहे च पातकं कथं न ज्ञेयम् अस्माभिः पापादस्मान्निवर्तितुं कुलक्षय कृतं दोषं प्रपश्यद्भिर्जनार्दन. O Janardan, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? So here Arjuna is saying that though the opposing party is overtaken by greed, for the sake of greed, they don't see any harm in killing their family members, right? Because they are so much overcome by ambition and greed. But why should we be like them? Why should we also behave in that fashion, right? So that's the example. This argument is based on the Sastric injunction from Dharma Shastra that saintly people, they do not give up their saintly character, regardless of how they are treated by the opposing party, right? Just like an envious person never gives up their quality of being envious, why should a saintly person give up the quality of being saintly at all time and in all circumstances? So this is the injunction. So based on that, here Arjuna is making an argument. Now, a Kshatriya, in the Prabhupada, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that a Kshatriya is not supposed to refuse a battle, a challenge for a battle or a challenge for a gambling match, when he is so invited by some rival party. So in Mahabharata, it is misunderstood by many people that they think that Yudhishthir had a weakness for gambling, or he was addicted to gambling. I've seen people, heard people say that, but that's not true. That's not the proper understanding. Yudhishthir is Dharmaraj. He is the son of Yama. Yama is Dharmaraj. And being a son of Yama and being Dharmaraj, there is no way that he would engage in something that is irreligious. So it's not that he was addicted to gambling or anything like that. But the proper understanding is that a Kshatriya has to accept a challenge. And the challenge, is not just challenge in terms of battle, but that could be any challenge in terms of even a gambling match. And generally, the gambling matches, when they are done, also they are done in the spirit of conquering each other, but it's not with the idea of usurping somebody's wealth. Kshatriyas, they generally have a lot of wealth, and they put it at stake. But it's not that they are, even the opposing party is not, uh, when the two parties are really acting according to Kshatriya spirit, they are not really trying to win over someone wealth. That is not the objective of that gambling match. There is money involved or wealth involved, but the main intention is to challenge and to conquer. That in that spirit they are playing. It's not that they're trying to win over someone's wealth. But in case of Duryodhana, he was not. He took the injunction which is available according to dharma, that Kshatriyas can participate in a gambling match with a Kshatriya spirit. But he took that injunction and he challenged or invited Yudhishthir for a gambling match. But his intention was not in a Kshatriya spirit. His intention was it was evil-minded. So I just wanted to make that note. So here the context is that sorry, it's my note. Yeah. Okay, so I'll talk about that also. So here Arjuna could not refuse the fight because he was challenged by Duryodhana. So in a Kshatriya spirit, he has to act according to that nature. He cannot just run away. Like towards the end of Mahabharata, when Jarasandh, who had attacked Mathura so many times, 16 times, and Krishna single-handedly defeated the entire army of Jarasandh, who had millions of soldiers. He always left Jarasandh alive. He did not kill him. The 17th time Krishna, for his pastime to manifest, he actually did not fight and he ran away. At the same time, Kalyavan was coming to attack from the other side, and Krishna said, "Why I have to unnecessarily kill innocent people? I can easily defeat both of them." But on the pretext of apparently appearing like a coward, he ran away and then moved to Dwarka, and then he established this big city. That was also for him to manifest the Dwarka pastime. But he's known as Ranachod. So whatever Krishna does, to call someone a coward is an offense. But to call Krishna a coward, Ranachod, is a glorification. So there, even because Krishna is absolute, even anyone tries to criticize him, that becomes his glorification. So Krishna is worshipped as Ranchodarai in Gujarat, in Dakor. So Jarasandh, in the end, when Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna, they go to challenge and they say, "You're a Kshatriya, we ask that you fight with us." And Jarasandh says, "Krishna, you are a coward, you ran away, I'm not going to fight with you." Right? So these are all Kshatriya codes. And Arjuna, you are younger than me, so I won't fight with you. It won't be proper for me to fight. Says Bhima, you are of the same age, and you are equally powerful. So then they engage in a wrestling match. So there are different Kshatriya codes by which one is expected to act. So yeah, Arjuna is basically making the argument that why should I give up my saintliness? And then I think I wanted to say something. Yeah. So gambling otherwise is considered as a sinful activity. So there are 4 regulative principles. The 4 regulative principles, they are, which is, let me first mention what those principles are. One is no gambling. One is no intoxication. That is second. No illicit sex. And then no meat eating. These are the 4 principles of dharma. So dharma takes the form of a bull. And cow takes the cow represents mother earth, right, or bhumi. But then the bull represents dharma, and this bull has 4 legs. The 4 legs of religion or dharma are: one is austerity, and second is mercy, third is cleanliness, and then fourth is truthfulness. So austerity is destroyed by gambling, not the gambling in Kshatriya spirit, ordinary gambling. Because the gambling, the idea of gambling is that how can I easily earn wealth without working hard for it? So that destroys austerity. So in a spiritual life, we don't want comfort. There has to be some voluntary inconvenience for a higher purpose. Right? If we are addicted to sensual pleasures and comfort, then we are on a bodily platform. And when we are on a bodily platform, we cannot seek spiritual realization. So that is the first principle. The second principle is mercy. And mercy is destroyed by meat eating. Whenever an animal is slaughtered, then what happens is that animal has to suffer so much pain, right? So the second principle is mercy. Now this has nothing to do with people say, we are not interested in faith-based religion. So okay, there's nothing to do with faith. These are basic principles. When one follows these basic principles, human life begins, right? If these values are not there, then one cannot even be called human. So Shastras, they call them Dvipad Pasu. He's two-legged, but he's acting like an animal. How? We'll talk about that. So meat eating destroys mercy. Then intoxication destroys cleanliness. How? Because when one is intoxicated, the mind is not clean, right? People cannot even drive properly, right? That's why we have DUI tickets. So one man has no control over intelligence, no control over what they speak, how they behave, act. And when they are not internally clean, then externally also things are not clean. People who are depressed and who are taking intoxication and drugs, see whatever surrounding they live in, it's generally very filthy. So it all starts with internal uncleanliness and then it manifests externally. So intoxication destroys cleanliness. That is the third principle of dharma. And the fourth principle is truthfulness. So illicit sex outside of marriage, destroys truthfulness. Why? Because what is the ultimate truth? Ultimate truth is that we are soul. Body is not the truth. Truth means it has to be true always. It was true today, it's going to be true tomorrow, and it is true at all places, all circumstances, all times. But body is not true. When somebody engages in illicitly enjoying a body sexually, then one reinforces the bodily conception of life. And one thinks that, I am this body and the purpose of this life is to enjoy. And the highest form of enjoyment that people think in this material world is sexual enjoyment. And so to pursue that, people engage in illicit relationships. And when one does that, one is destroying truthfulness. How? Because it reinforces the bodily conception of life, and then body is temporary, it's not true. So this is the 4 principles of dharma, and one of them is gambling. So that's what we discussed over here. And why this is important is that Mahabharata, there is a sloka which says that ahar nidra bhai maithuna cha saman pasubhi cha narana nam dharma hi adhiko vishesho dharmena vina pasu hi samana. He says eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, these 4 things, they are common between humans and animals, right? Everyone agrees. Animals and humans, they all engage in these 4 activities. They are common. They all need food, eating, they sleep, there is mating, and there is defense. Now we might have laser guided bombs, but that doesn't make us any better than animals who are fighting by their claws. We might have a fancy penthouse to sleep in, and animals might sleep out on the road or in the jungle, but that doesn't mean, it's just we are doing it in a sophisticated way. It's a high living, simple thinking. These 4 things are simple thinking: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. But we are high living, simple thinking. But human life means simple living, high thinking, right? Same thing, we might be, going around in aeroplanes or, going out in cars, but animals might be running on their legs, right? We might be eating in a fancy restaurants and they might be eating out in the wild. That's just a better way of doing things, but doesn't make us any better. What is the difference between humans and animals? When the curiosity or inquisitiveness for the purpose of life, animals cannot think what is going to happen to me after death. What is the purpose of life? When those questions arise, then that is the beginning of spiritual life. And the spiritual life means these 4 principles should be followed. You cannot expect animal to be austere. You cannot expect animal to be clean, right? They don't have that standard of cleanliness. then they don't have mercy. They're not, when they're gonna, like Arjuna is thinking why I should kill my family members. There are species of life, they would even eat their own children for the sake of food, right? So eating, sleeping, mating, there are species of life, they don't make any distinction between, they might mate with what is biologically their mothers or sisters. You see that in a lot of species of life. So they are just acting on animal instincts and impulses. If humans should know better, and what is this better is this four principles. That is beginning of human life. Forget about religiosity or belief system. That's another level. But even to be considered as a human, this four principles has to be followed. So that is the injunction of scriptures is mentioned in Mahabharata. Anyone has any question on this particular point? Yeah, somebody want to say something?
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand the first one, the one that actually affects the austerities, gambling. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
So, can you? I mean, if I have to expand it a little bit further, like anything that are pleasing to the senses are can be considered as gambling, or like for example, if someone want to watch Netflix for like 2 days continuously, do you see that fall into that category?
No, gambling means, see, everyone, we need some sort of sustenance to body, maintain our family, our body. That means we have to earn wealth.
Mm-hmm.
The earning wealth by honest means, by working hard, you would require some hard work, some inconvenience. You might have to wake up early in the morning to take your call with offshore, or people had to commute before the pandemic, right? So you're working hard, you're working honestly, and so there are no, and it's not a shortcut, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
is not gambling, right? Gambling means that somehow quick fix. Maybe people try to speculate in stocks, for instance. Now that I'm not saying stock investment itself is gambling, but I'm saying people, they don't, there are individuals who do not really understand, they just want to take their chances and bet. It literally, by gambling I literally refer to what actually gambling is,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are different ways, like there could be poker for money, or I know, Russian roulette, or there are so many different ways. Blackjack, people gamble. And there could be betting, the sports betting is huge, betting on games. But uh, now there are people who might just be doing for fun, but there are people who really are looking for uh, ways to earn quick wealth very quickly and easily without working hard. We just want to have an easy, nice life at the and for that they are willing to maybe speculate and take their chances. But anything where we want to sort of uh, take a chance by which we can potentially live comfortably without working hard, perhaps at the cost of others, would be in the gambling.
Mm-hmm.
And out of this four, this one, everyone has a little doubt, because it's not always exactly clear what is gambling. I think the short answer to this is, you have to really ask and question. We have to really ask and question ourselves, what I'm doing. I'm trying to I'm trying to do something which is with the intention of not working hard, not working honestly, not working hard, and just get a shortcut way to easy, comfortable life. That's and that's what actually it refers to.
Okay. I was actually, the reason why I asked that question is, yes, it probably makes sense at the time when that was written, with that society. But is there anything that we need to again add more into it for the current situations and current timelines? Because the things exactly are not no more true because of the time change, right? Like, yes, there are
Which
gambling.
which particular principle you're talking about?
The gambling part, especially that actually affects our stress. So when you mentioned that, I felt, I actually, this is how I understand that anything that you are um, um, anything that you are bound to follow the senses, like, um, if you want to, if you like eating something, you just keep on eating. Or if anything that you fall to, anything senses, that actually
I
comes
see
under
what, yeah, I know what you're saying. So the thing is, the four principles that I mentioned, no gambling, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, these are the grossest form of violating the four principles of austerity, mercy, cleanliness, and truthfulness. This is the grossest form. But there are subtle ways we can violate this. And then the thing is, we have to, there is a progressive, that there is a gradual uh, progression of how we evolve ourselves spiritually, and that won't happen overnight. So the first thing is, one has to stop at a grossest level. That means no gambling. It means that what is actually considered as a gambling, you go on a casino floor and you gamble, right? That has to be given up, right, at the grossest level. Now there are higher levels which will naturally and progressively come. You cannot be artificially imposed. uh, Same thing, mercy. Like, so the highest form of austerity is when, spiritual life, one when naturally develops attachment for Krishna, and then, you people, they do fasting. So every Ekadasi, there are devotees who do Nirjala fasting. That is an austerity, right? In Kali Yuga, we are not saying that, Shastras don't say that you go to the forest and you meditate for 10 years. That's not feasible. But voluntarily we can accept some austerity for a higher purpose. So that day, when we don't take any grains or even no food or water. Now not everyone starts at that level. Some people don't take grains, but they just take fruits, or they eat one time. But then when one spiritually progresses, then eventually, they might even not take water, and the time that is saved, they might read or chant, and they use it for a higher purpose. So voluntarily accepting some convenience, and it is gradually stepwise, there is an increment. So to answer your question, is it relevant in the present age? Yes, it is relevant, but you cannot jump to the highest level artificially. One has to start at the basic level. The basic level is, stop doing the four grossest forms of illicit activities, and then slowly, naturally will come. So Krishna consciousness or bhakti is so wonderful that we, unlike other processes, we don't artificially try to impose restrictions on the senses. Senses cannot be stopped. Senses, they want to eat something nice, you cannot say the senses that, oh, don't eat. Rather, everything can be dovetailed in the service of Krishna. So the slowly, the instead of thinking, oh, what is pleasing to me, right? Or I want to enjoy, the all tongue always wants to enjoy something nice. So we have to slowly change our consciousness. Not that we stop eating nice things, but we say, oh, the who is the original enjoyer? Krishna is the original enjoyer. So let me make this nice bhoga for Krishna. So what, nothing changes. You're doing the cooking, the same cooking happens, right? So we cook it, we offer it to the deity or picture of Krishna. We have a separate plate for him, we wash it, clean it, offer him. So now the consciousness, we have to slowly change. So what is changed? Eating cannot be stopped, right? But the consciousness has changed. We want to offer it to Krishna first. So that's why in Vaishnava culture, anything that is purchased first is offered to Krishna. If somebody buys a new home, they get the keys, immediately go to the temple, offer it to the keys on the altar, and say, oh Krishna, this is your home. You are the master of this home. I am only a servant. So right. So we change their consciousness, and then we think, okay, I am living in this house as a servant. The original proprietor of the house is Krishna. You get a new car. People take the first thing is, okay, who is the first person to sit? They take the deity out on a ride in the car. You get a new clothes. You might see in the Vedic culture, even parents, grandparents. The first thing is you offer new clothes to the Lord. So the consciousness changes. The enjoyment doesn't stop, but I am the secondary enjoyer. I am not the primary enjoyer. So when we take the remnants of the food offered to Krishna, that becomes prasadam. What is prasadam? Just like if somebody gives remnants of their plate to me, हम हिंदी में क्या कहते हैं, जूठा खा रहे हो, we are eating leftovers from somebody's plate. That is a menial consciousness. You take a menial position. So when we offer bhoga and take we are taking as a leftover. Oh, these are leftovers of Krishna. I am his servant. So now what happens? The natural propensity to be the primary enjoyer stops, and then we enjoy the food. Oh no, this is nice food. Krishna, would have enjoyed so much. So we have to slowly cultivate our consciousness like that. And this is not to be artificially imposed. There is the idea is higher taste. As soon as as we cultivate a higher taste, the lower propensities are automatically reduced, and there is a gradual progression that happens. So it's not something that artificially can be imposed. So first we are trying to understand things philosophically, and then as we read more about Krishna's pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam, then chant Krishna's name, and slowly associate with devotees, honor prasadam, then the consciousness slowly changes. So we don't have to remove anything artificially. That's why it's called Krishna consciousness. All we have to do is keep on doing what we are doing, except for grossly sinful things which I mentioned. Those are forbidden. But apart from that, do what we are doing, but we have to change our consciousness that we are not the primary enjoyer. And slowly we can from becoming a Godas, we can slowly become Goswamis. It is possible. Krishna says to Arjuna that many have achieved this, you can also do it. So this was spoken just before the beginning of Kali Yuga. So this Bhagavad Gita is valid. It's valid for the present age, and that's why we are discussing. Now the details might be different. What is the detail? We have to take the essence. There is the idea of Sargrahi Vaishnav. Sargrahi Vaishnav means we take the essence, just like honey bee. What does honey bee do? It takes the essence and leaves the rest. So the principle of austerity will always apply, whether it is Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. The austerity will always apply, but the detail is different. In Satyuga, austerity means you go in the forest, you do tapa for 10,000 years. You don't eat, drink anything. That is not feasible. In Kali Yuga, austerity means some inconvenience. Waking up early in the morning, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, that gradually happens. We don't try to artificially impose. No matter what season it is, whether it is hot or what's cold, maintain our schedule, wake up early in the morning and do japa, or you read something spiritual first thing, right? That is an inconvenience. It's not easy, right? But it's minor inconvenience. We don't have to go to the forest. Some fasting we do twice a month. It's not expected that everyone immediately does Nirjala fasting. That, naturally it might come. Or what we do, okay, I'm going to just go on this Ekadasi day, I'm just going to have fruits or milk. And the time I save by not cooking, the time I'll use for maybe reading more. So that is some inconvenience, you see. So in this way, so this is simple austerity, right? Now, for most people, this also might mean a lot. So Kali Yuga things have been toned down, but the principle of austerity is there. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So it's a detail might be different. So you're right. The time is different. The age is different, but the detail changes, but the principle does not change, because ultimately we want spiritual perfection. So we have to apply those principles. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else has any other question? Okay. I just wanted to make one detail. So the argument that Arjuna is saying is that, say, they are not afraid of killing their family members, but why should we behave like that? So there is a story in that there is this incident in this biblical story of it's called Judgment of Solomon. You can look it up on Wikipedia, but the essence of this analogy, it's also used in a lot of conversation in the Western culture, is there are two women. One of them is a genuine mother of a real mother of a baby, and the other is an imposter, and both are claiming the child. And so in order to find out who is the real mother, the arbiter, he says that, well, since both of one of you is lying, I don't know who is lying, but the only way since both of you want the child, maybe both of you are lying, I don't know. He says, I'm going to cut the child into 2 pieces, and then each of you can have the child. And so the one who is an imposter sees like, okay, if no one can get the child, I rather let the child die. And so she does not say anything. But the real mother says, no, 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 no. You know what? Let the other woman have the child and let the child remain alive. So that by that, the arbiter was able to figure out that, oh, she is the real mother. So anyway, the main point is what was the attitude of that real mother? She really, instead of claiming the right, which was his real right, she said rather let the child be alive. It's the same thing Arjuna is saying. Though I am the rightful owner of this kingdom, uh, but if it is at the cost of my near and dear ones, I'd rather have my near and dear ones remain alive and not have my right. So that's the analogy that we can think of. Yeah, another thing over here is, see, it says obligation is actually binding when the effect is good, but when the effect is otherwise, then no one can be bound. So what is the obligation is talked about? The obligation for a Kshatriya. So right, the Prabhupada is making an argument, a Kshatriya, anytime they are challenged either for gambling or for a fight, they should accept the challenge. But Arjuna, what is saying, that by accepting that challenge, if the effect is good, then I am ready to accept. Otherwise not. Why is saying that? Because see, he already experienced that when they were earlier challenged for gambling, and by following the Kshatriya norm, he said, I accepted the challenge. We accepted the challenge. But what was the outcome? The other party did not act in a good faith. And what happened? We lost all our kingdom. We became dasas. Our wife was humiliated. So you see, the effect was not good. Now you're asking me to, still stick to the Kshatriya principle and accept this challenge of fight. And I can foresee, I already have experienced in the past that the effect was not good by accepting the challenge of a gambling according to Kshatriya spirit. Now, if I do the same thing, again the consequences would not be good. So this is the argument that Arjuna is presenting. Any questions on this? Okay, verse number 39. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kuladharma sanatanah dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo abhibhavati yuta. Translation: when the destruction of the dynasty, with the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished. Thus, the religion of the family becomes involved in irreligion. So now this is the third argument, right? So first argument was my immediate sense gratification that I won't be able to enjoy with my near dear one. Second argument says, okay, that is temporary, but after I leave my life, after I won't achieve salvation because I would be implicated in Guru Hatya, Brahmana Hatya. Third is, okay, let's even forget about myself. I'm still thinking about me. Now I'm thinking about the society. He says, what will happen when all these men would be dead? Who would take care of all the widows? Unscrupulous men will come and exploit these women. Then there would be unwanted children out of those relationships. And then what will happen when one is not begetting children according to within marriage? Then these children are unwanted children. No one will take care of them. They won't be properly trained in Varnasrama culture as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. And then they would give up the family practice of offering pindadan to the pitris, and there are so many other regulations, and the whole culture will be destroyed. So now he's saying destruction of the society even after the war is won. So this is his third argument. So in this, then he talks about Varna Shankara, and there are other references come. So I think we have 15 minutes. I don't know how much we'll be able to cover, but I think the Varnashram, I wanted to talk a little bit about what actually is Varna and what is the importance of it. We at least try to understand from the context during that time, and then how it is applicable to us. So let me start that discussion, and then if we are not able to finish, we'll continue on next time. But the reason I want to cover this is that at least there are three places three instances in Bhagavad Gita where Varnashram is explicitly mentioned. But other places there is a strong, though it is not explicitly mentioned, there is a strong underlying theme where the prescribed duties, when you talk about karma yoga, and Krishna says, you have to do your prescribed duty, but that prescribed duty is on the basis of one's Varna. And then again, the question of Varna will come. And so unless that foundation of Varna is not clear, it would create, confusion or improper understanding. So I want to take some time out so that we are sort of well positioned for understanding those verses later. And also in one or two verses, Arjuna is going to talk about Varna Sankara, which means mixed Varnas. And in order to understand mixed Varnas, we have to understand what Varnas are to begin with. So let me cover that as much as we can. So let's take a step back and let's try to understand the position of the conditioned soul. With the soul, when it comes to the material world, it could accept so many different species of life, right? There are 8.4 million species of life. So it is said, this verse appears in Padma Puran. Says Jalajanava Lakshani Sthavar Laksha Vimsati Krimayo Rudya Sankhaya Pakshinam Dasa Lakshanam Trimsan Lakshani Pasavaha Chatur Lakshani Manusha. So what it basically says is that there are different species of life. I did not. I think okay, there is some copy paste error here. Oh, what got copied? Just give me a minute. Yeah, so there are different species of life. And yeah, here there are 900,000 species of life, aquatics. There are 900,000 aquatic species of life. There are was it 2 million non-living entities. So non-living means trees and plants. They are sthavar. They don't move. There are different species of. There are 2 million species of plants and trees. There is 1.1 million species of insects and reptiles. There are 1 million species of birds, right? And then there are four-legged animals. They come in 3 million species. And then humans. Out of these humans, you see there are very less, only 400,000. Now, this species of life is not according to the modern biological classification. The Shastric classification is based on consciousness, because the soul, each species has a different level of consciousness. And then when there is a drastic difference in consciousness between two different species, then they are segregated as two different species. So just want to clarify that. So if you see all these different millions of species of life, you see all of them are in millions or hundreds of thousands, right? And then humans are the least. Human species of life are 400,000 species. So there are different consciousness. So this includes devas, this includes asuras, Gandharvas, yakshas, Kinnaras, and all of those are included in it. So you might be wondering, what do you mean 400,000 human species? This is across the universe, not just on this Earth planet. Now, if you see all these human species of life, at the lowest level, there are many aborigines, primitive form of life. So these primitive forms of life, they are mostly engaged in meeting their ends. So they would go and hunt. They don't have any sophisticated, culture or organized society or anything. But they are just living out, like Andaman Nicobar Islands in India. They have this one of the islands. They have what they are called sentinels. One of the Christian missionary tried to reach there recently, and he was shot by an arrow. Right. So this kind of tribes, they still exist, and they don't like contact with modern world, and they live very primitive kind of life. Now, there are other civilizations or societies or cultures where they are not living that kind of primitive life, and they have some advanced arts, right? But they are not necessarily moral. So when I say moral, means they are not necessarily following the 4 principles which I mentioned of no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. But they have advanced arts. So if you see, civilizations of Mesopotamia or the Greeks or the Romans, they were advanced in arts. So if they had city planning, or you see different artifacts from archaeological remains where they have, nice arts. And so in that sense, they are advanced in those capabilities. but they're not necessarily acting on moral principles. For instance, Roman civilization around the time was about to collapse. Anyway, they are not really necessarily. There are instances where they used to engage in a lot of indulgences, sensual indulgences, orgies. They would, definitely indulge in wine and meat. So from those principles of dharma, though they have some sort of society and culture and civilization, and they have advanced arts, they are not necessarily moral societies, but they are better than, you can say, in some way, than the primitive species of life. Then there are societies which are advanced in sciences, and then even ancient Greeks, for instance, the Chinese civilization, they had their own sciences. In the modern era, there are different obviously there is so much technological advancement, so this is high living, but the vast majority of modern civilization still has simple thinking, right? So instead of slaughtering an animal through bare hands, you mechanized, fully automated slaughterhouses, right? So, but the living is high, but the thinking is simple. Gambling, now you could do it online. With the pandemic, I was reading an article in Las Vegas, all these casinos are thinking that we don't have any business going on, so MGM is investing in a lot of online gambling. So there's advanced sciences, right? But what is it? What is the purpose? This thinking is simple, right? It's not on a higher moral principle. So anyway, then the human life, as I mentioned, begins with morality, and then we talked about this ahar, nidra, vai, maithun, four things common. Now, when we talk about moral cultures or religious traditions, you see, the Buddhists, the Jains, and then some of the Eastern cultures, they follow these principles. The principles of, austerity, mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness. And so in that sense, they are advanced. So the advancement is that of consciousness. The advancement doesn't mean advancement of technology or arts. The advancement means advancement of consciousness. So then these are moral societies. So first of all, so human life, according to Shastra, says when one is living a moral life, then the human life begins. Now you could be completely atheist. That's all right in the sense, but you could be still be human. For instance, Buddhism, it's an atheistic religion. They don't accept a personal God, right? But then it was founded on the principles of ahimsa paramo dharma, right? And the tenets are there. To what extent they are followed today, that's a different story. But the idea is that there are cultures which could be atheistic. That's all right, but they are moral, and so those humans can be and those beings can be considered as humans. Now beyond that, we have the Arya society. Now Aryans, when people talk about Aryans, they think Aryans refers to the race, from Central Asia. That's their understanding. But here, when Shastra, they talk about Aryas, Arya literally means progressive society. And it is not referring to the race. It's referring to the culture. And what is that culture? It is the culture where the society is divided into classes, and that classes is not based on the division of labor is not based on one's skills. That doesn't mean it's not based on interests. It's not based on liking or aptitude. I mean, skills could be there, interest could be there, liking could be there, aptitude could be there, or it might not be there. The skills might not be there, interest might not be. That is not the main criteria. The main criteria is one's nature. By one's nature, one can be considered of one particular Varna, and I'm going to talk more about that, what it means. So the definition of the Varnas will later appear in the further chapters, but I'll to elaborate a little bit in brief without going into too much detail. The qualities of a Brahmana and Kshatriya, when they are mentioned, I'll give an example of Kshatriya, just one example, and you get the idea, and we'll move on. We won't go into much detail, at least in this conversation. So Kshatriya, Bhagavad Gita says, Shauryam tejo dhriti daksham yuddhe cha api palayanam danam ishvara bhavascha shatram karma svabhavajam. The qualities of the Kshatriya, it says, Shaurya, they should be brave. Tejo, they should have power. Dhriti, that means they should be very patient. Dhriti, daksham, they should be expert in different things. With minimal resources, they will find out how to make things work. Yuddhe chapi palayanam. They would never ever run away from battlefield. They would rather die. And Ishvara Bhava, they were natural controllers, and they have authority. Shatram Karma Svabhavajam. So you see here they did not mention he should be expert in using weapons. You should be skillful in martial arts. These are not the qualities. The skills are not mentioned. What is mentioned? Nature. Nature means, whether I'm good or not, I might not be an expert fighter. Obviously, if they're trained as Kshatriya, they would have some skills. But the emphasis is not on skills. That he would never run away from the battlefield. Right? Then they would have patience. Kshatriya means they should be tolerant also. Patience means sometimes people will come and chastise. They say, what kind of king you are in your kingdom, this kind of crime is going on. And then that criticism one should be able to accept. Right? Not the Vandals. The Vandals, they don't like criticism. They are also expert in using weapons. They are powerful. You might have some physically strength, but they are simply interested in looting. Right. So then the Vandals, they are not Kshatriyas. Kshatriya means Traya means protect. Shat means harm. One who protects the society from the harm of external evil forces, those are called Kshatriyas. Similarly, Brahmana's qualities are described. Samadama tapa socham santi rarjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. So the qualities are described not based on ability to memorize slokas, ability to be learned in scriptures. That is not the quality for a Brahmana. What is Sama means equal mindedness. Dhamma means sense control. They have control over their senses. They are not urge over senses. Tapa, they naturally inclined to austerities. Saucham, cleanliness. Tapa, Saucham. Jnana, Vijnanam, they have natural interest in cultivating knowledge. Vijnanam. Astikyam, they should be theists. Astikyam, Brahma Karma Svabhavajam. So anyway, the point is it's based on nature. So why based on nature? Somebody might, why not based on skills? See, the modern society is currently, if somebody can do the job, hire them. That's the idea. He says somebody is able to do the job, hire them. Skills are important. Whoever gets the work done should get the job. Now, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, in 2 different places, Krishna says that it is better to do one's prescribed duty based on one's nature, even if one does imperfectly, than to do somebody else's duty perfectly. Better to do one's own duty imperfectly rather than do somebody else's duty perfectly. You see, the emphasis is very different. Why? Somebody might question. So again, we'll discuss this in detail later, but I'll explain the basic principle. See, the current society is based on the idea that we live and die once. And we want all material comfort and pleasures because, once we are dead, things are gone. So we just want to get things done, and for things done, whoever is able to do it, do it. But in the Arya Varnasrama culture, it is understood that the body is not permanent. The soul is permanent. You want to have another life. And so the idea is you want to get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. So at the basic level, you want to stop the cycle of karma. And when we are acting according to our nature, we are not implicated in karma. So the first importance is we don't want to get implicated in our karma. So they give an example, like a tiger, if it hunts a prey and consumes the flesh, the tiger does not accrue any sin. Because tiger does not have discrimination. Tiger does not have a choice. The tiger is acting according to instinct. So animals don't have any karma. So why? Because they are acting according to nature. Now he is killing, right? But when one is acting according to the nature, these sins, one is not implicated in sin. So in this world, no matter what activity do, there is always some fault. There's always some fault involved. For business, we have to sometimes say lie. Kshatriyas, sometimes they, have to indulge in politics. Sometimes they are allowed to do hunting to sharpen their skills of using weapons. They should be accustomed to seeing blood. So Kshatriyas, it's allowed, but it is a fault. There is a fault involved in the activity. So there is nothing in the world that is free from faults. So later Krishna also says, just like fire is covered by smoke, all activities have some fault. But when we are engaged in an activity according to our nature, we are not implicated in the sin. So before, the first step in an Arya culture is you want to stop getting implicated in the sin. And so that's why the emphasis is not so much on skills or liking or aptitude, but what one is driven according to nature. And there is a detailed culture and science of how those varnas are identified and how they are cultivated. um, so so I talked about that. So that's what, so the Varna culture is a progressive culture for spiritual perfection. So among the humans, the Aryans are the best. And so Aryans is not according to the race. Aryan is the culture. Arya is the progressive culture of the Varnas. Now, if you want to compare this with the current spectrum, I think we are almost about time. I don't know if I want to start this new topic. 6:30. I think we can take a pause over here, and I think or maybe if you don't mind 1 or 2 minutes, because this is the last of my notes. Let me finish this topic. It shouldn't take much time. So if you see the current spectrum of debate in either news or entertainment or academia, we have this spectrum. What is the spectrum? The spectrum of argument that we have is that of there is a clashes of classes. So if you academia, which is typically the area of brahmanas, the current spectrum of argument is whether the education should be available, it should be available to everyone, it should be universally free, not versus the idea that only those who are rich or have access to resources should have education. That should not be the case. So that is a clash between two conflicting ideas. So this one is on the liberal side, right, and this one is on the conservative side. Like there was an article recently which was saying that with the pandemic situation and public schools being closed, or some of those who have resources, those who are rich, they are starting their own micro pods within their community. 4 students get together, hiring private tutors to teach their kids. And so the idea is that, well, if they are doing that, then other kids are going to fall apart who don't have the money to do it. So the liberal spectrum or the conservative spectrum, both of them misses the idea that actually in the Varna culture, the higher education, not this material education, but when we talk about Varna culture, there are other forms of education which is, it's not suitable for everyone. You have to see whose nature it is. And we see it in the present world also. Like you put all the kids in the class, and though they have access to the same resources, some kids are just not meant, or just don't have the ability or access to uh, grasp those concepts and complete the education, and then rather they could have used the time to get some vocational training. Same thing, administration. So when we talk about managing societies, or in how we have democracy versus different kind of authoritarian governance, could be fascism or dictatorship. So that's the extreme end, right? There is the conservative side, and then you have vox populi, where you have the idea of people have access to the franchise, or the right to vote, and you elect the official. But we see that, of course, authoritarianism, when the person is not, but no one is talking about qualification. In case of authoritarian rule, is the person really a kshatriya, has really the qualities to be a good leader? So that's why authoritarianism is rejected. But even vox populi, people, they don't even know what is good for their own selves. What are they going to decide what's going to be good for the country? Like in instance of when people in UK, they voted for Brexit. After the results of the voting were out, the most popular search on Google was, what is Brexit? So in UK, the people in UK, they are searching what is Brexit after they voted for it, right? So in a lot of places also, we see that the leaders, they promise money, wine, televisions, and then people would just vote, or they would just vote randomly. So the idea that it's a nice fanciful liberal idea, but the idea that people have full, all people are equal and have access to deciding who is a good leader, also has its own flaws. So in the Varna culture, again, they see who is qualified to rule, right? And is that person has the qualities of a kshatriya? So the point I'm trying to make is that the the Varnas, they transcend the typical spectrum of conservativeness and liberalism. It's not as neither centrist. It does not fall anywhere in between that. It transcends the typical spectrum. Same thing with economy, right? So which is the domain of the Vaishyas. So we have communism at one end, capitalism at another end. So they are arguing, one is liberal and another is you can say an orthodox position. But the both of them, they are engaging labor based on skills. They are not saying that what's happening to the person in the process, is that the nature of the person. The only thing is the results are different. In capitalism, one is rewarded based on one's input. In communism, one is rewarded based on one's need, but the engagement is still based on skills. It's not based on nature. Same thing on the trade. There is a free trade versus monopolistic on the other extreme. But then the trade, the actual trading is one has to see if one has really qualification to be engaged in trade. And Vaishya doesn't mean just trading. Main their business is agriculture, cow protection, and then some trading on top of it. So similarly in labor, we have the unionized labor and labor rights on one spectrum, and then there is an exploitative culture on the other extreme. But both these positions, they are not really looking whether the person is being benefited by being engaged in one's nature. So I just wanted to present a brief overview on how the Varna system transcends the typical spectrum of liberalism and conservative positions. That is the common debate. And I had one more point to say is, I think we're already up time, but let me finish this point and we can conclude. Is there is this idea of niyama agraha. Agraha means do not accept. So liberal position is do not accept any rules and regulations. The orthodox position is niyam agraha. Agraha means insist. They insist on following the orthodox positions or the classes, right? But without understanding why you need that. What is the purpose? For instance, they don't understand the ultimate purpose is that if they are engaged based on one's nature, then one is not implicated in sinful reaction. So that understanding is not there. So when you combine the sandhi, niyam plus agraha is niyam agraha. And niyam plus agraha is also niyam agraha. See, Sanskrit is such a refined language. The same word is used. Niyam agraha. When you join the sandhi, both of them turn into niyam agraha. A plus a is also a, and a plus a is also a. So both, why one word for both liberal and orthodox position? Because Shastra is saying both liberal and orthodox positions are useless if you don't understand the higher purpose, which they are not understanding. For instance, if my child is learning how to ride a bike, the liberals would say that there is no need for training wheels. And the orthodox would say, the conservatives say, you always need training wheels even after you learn the bike, right? Why? Because if you don't understand if you don't understand the purpose of training wheels was only for allowing the child to learn the bike, then they would not insist on that orthodox position. So the both, the far right and the far left, the both positions, they are based on incorrect understanding. The Varnas, the whole idea completely transcends the entire spectrum. And so Shastra rejects both orthodox and conservative position by one word, niyamagraha. So with that, I would like to end the class. I think we are already over time, and then we can continue on from next session. If you have any questions right now, I'm sure you would have more. You can, if it's brief, I can answer it right now, or we can take it up in the next session. Anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.